So we're here with Terri Lomax. She is the Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation at NC State.
That's right.
And in July, your office is undergoing a change.
We're expanding. We're taking on responsibility for economic development. So it'll be Office of Research, Innovation, and Economic Development.
Okay. So the title does not reflect that yet.
Not till July 1st.
Okay. And are you taking on a totally new responsibility that nobody else had before, or is that coming from somewhere else and moving to your office?
It's coming from somewhere else. So we were always doing economic development because we had the technology transfer and innovation part of the university. But we did also have a separate office of extension, engagement, and economic development. And with the retirement of that Vice Chancellor, Jim S.I.T.T, we're splitting it out to where the engagement component is going with the provost, and I'll be picking up the economic development portion of it.
And what does that mean? Like you said, you've done the tech transfer, the startups, the spin-offs, the licensing, all that your office has already done, right? And will continue to do.
We'll absolutely continue to do all of that, and it just makes a nice continuum to have the economic development, which is really out working more around the state, and especially with companies that are interested in locating in North Carolina.
And explain to me how this fits in with, I understand where technology that is being developed at the university and is on the product track gets licensed or gets spun out as a company. And I understand that state is probably a component in the economic development strategy of the state, the Department of Commerce.
Right.
But how does this actually work? There are so many cooks in the kitchen, it's hard to figure out who's doing what.
It is. The economic development ecosystem is very large and very complex. So there's not only the Department of Commerce, but there's county and city level economic development organizations, and then we've got regional economic development organizations across the state. And so those work amazingly well together. So it's a team effort when we're going after a company that wants to locate here or who wants to grow or move, and they all pretty much work in concert. And so often it's the universities and the workforce that we can provide that makes a huge difference for the decision of companies where they're going to locate.
How so? What do you bring to the table that changes their mind?
Well, let me give you an example of one that we were involved in, and that was bringing Spirit Air to the Kinston area, to the Global Trans Park. And we worked extensively, not only our economic development staff, but our deans of engineering and management and other groups with Spirit to convince them of the kinds of programs we had that would benefit them and in the kinds of students that we're producing that would benefit them.
So you're coming at it from a labor force argument.
Yeah, from the workforce. But also the expertise of our faculty and researchers in helping them develop their new areas. And that's where we play an interesting role, because we also have a lot of companies on Centennial campus and considering coming to Centennial campus. And that's because they want to be right where the research is. So they're not moving their manufacturing there, but they're moving their R&D groups there to be right where the research is happening.
Do you have kind of a focus on certain industries, more so than on others, as a university?
I wouldn't say so. Obviously, we're traditionally very strong in the engineering and science and technology areas. But it's also very important to many of them to have the expertise from our College of Management, which specializes in the management of technology, and also our humanities and social sciences and the cultural awareness, and especially with globalization going on, the ability to educate their staff about that and to provide people who know foreign languages.
Sure.
So it's really a combination of the whole university.
And bringing in the part that used to be in the extension office, am I understanding that right?
Right.
What kind of a piece does that add to your office?
Well, we were interacting extensively with that group already, so it just sort of completes the continuum, because research and innovation lead to economic development, and so to have that all together in one place lets us think about it more coherently. And one of the things that we're putting together is proof of concept centers in certain areas where we have expertise.
What does that mean, a proof of concept center? Are we talking brick and mortars, or is it?
No, it's providing expertise and licensing ability and support for new companies and existing companies in a specific area. So it's something that's been promulgated a lot lately by the Kauffman Foundation. And what it would be is, for example, in the clean tech or energy sector, being able to help new companies or existing companies with navigating their way through the regulatory environment, which is what you need most in that area. In the areas of nonwovens and textiles, it will be actually access to the machinery we have and the expertise we have in that area that will help those companies out.
Okay. And have you had those centers before, or is that a new idea?
No, we've had a traditional incubator,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what we think will be the most helpful to startup companies. Another thing that the Kauffman Foundation did a study on recently is most new jobs come from companies less than 5 years old. And especially during a recession, that's extremely important. And so we want to be doing everything we can to help these new companies be successful. It's easy to start a new company, but to have it be successful and grow and create jobs is another thing.
And what you're doing in your office, that is specific to NC State, right? Even though you are part of the whole UNC system, how does that fit in?
Within the system, all of the universities have been working together on a task force on how we can be better at innovation. And so sometimes, for example, we take on, from some of the smaller universities, we take on technologies and run them through our technology transfer office and put them through the kinds of things that we can offer that they don't have with the smaller size.
But there's basically a Terri Lomax at the other campuses, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There is. In most cases, it's research or research and graduate studies. It's a different combination than what we're trying to put together.
How much, you said that somebody's retiring, so you're taking this in. How much are the budget cuts playing into this? The budget was approved, it's on the governor's desk.
Right.
It's probably going to be vetoed, so we don't know what we're going to have, but I know that there's a lot of proactive activity because you probably know what range we're talking.
Well, since Chancellor Woodson has come in, he's been very much for us reorganizing for effectiveness. So this has some to do with the budget, but it mostly has to do with how can we be more effective in doing what we're doing day to day and moving into new areas that we haven't been so active in yet, like these proof of concept centers that we're talking about.
You think you would have done that even if there had been no budget cuts?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How are those proof of concept centers? Are they used elsewhere?
Yes. So there's a couple of very well-known ones are the Deshpande Center at MIT, and then there's the von Liebig Center at University of California at San Diego.
And they work similarly, or?
Each one has a slightly different model depending on their setup. MIT being a private university operates a little differently than we do, but they're certainly the models that we're looking at as we put ours together.
Is there anything, a report? Can I go to the Kaufman report and look at a little more background of what the proof of concept centers are
So
all about?
if you just Google Kaufman
Right.
and Proof of Concept Center, then there's a report there from 2009, I believe it
Okay.
was.
And basically, you're hoping that these centers will be sort of the go-to places for young companies to.
And they may not want to physically locate with us, but that we would provide services to them. So we're trying to move away, and it's still valuable to have the physical incubator with some business services with it, but we're trying to give more services, and companies need to go where the real estate makes the most sense for them, and so it may be very different for a biotechnology one that requires wet lab space than say your software type where all they need is someone's garage and a couple of computers.
The incubator you're talking about, does that have a name?
It's just called the NC State Incubator.
Oh, okay. Where is that? Is that here?
It's on Centennial Campus
I see.
in Corporate Research 1.
How large an area would you, I mean, it's almost like a consulting service, right? These proof of concept centers. How large an area do you think you would be able to serve with these centers geographically?
Well, I think some virtual services could serve quite a large area, but ones who want more intense contact would certainly want to be closer by.
We're talking RTP area, we're talking state?
And the RTP area certainly, but I would think, we have a statewide presence with NC State, with a presence in all 100 counties and offices for our Small Business Technology Development Center and Industrial Extension Service across the state. So that gives us a chance to offer some of these services much more broadly.
Basically.
But initially we really want to focus on making sure that our technologies that are coming out of NC State are getting a good chance to get out to where they can benefit the public.
Will you have somebody in charge of that, or?
Yes, and we're just sort of working on our org chart right
now.
now.
You don't know yet? Okay.
Not quite ready there.
Okay. And how do you expect this to work? Do you think people will come to you, or there'll be a website they'll just come across, or how are you going to do outreach?
Well, for our technologies, of course, they all have to come through our Office of Technology Transfer, so that'll be the best way to connect them with it. The other thing that we're really excited about is our Chancellor's Innovation Fund. And so that's a fund that Chancellor Woodson has set up to provide proof of concept, sort of pre-seed funding for our technologies that just need some more development before they're ready for licensing or to be involved in a startup company. And we're just in the midst of the first selection of those, and we got 56 applications just from within campus.
These are all from?
All from NC State. And we've narrowed it down to the final 12, and we'll have the selection of probably 3 or 4 to move forward next week. We wish we had a lot more money to put into it, but that's what we can do so far. And so that's another way to make sure our technologies get engaged, and that would be something we would want our proof of concept centers to do, is to really support these that we've chosen.
But how much money is there in that innovation fund, or how much is there earmarked per year?
It's $2.5 million over those next 5 years, and this year we have $250,000 available.
And that is for calendar or fiscal?
For fiscal year. Well, we'll be selecting some within this fiscal year, but they'll be funded next year.
So this is basically
for this
2012, right?
Yeah, so for our budget starts July 1st.
Right. That's when 2012 for you starts,
Yes,
right?
right.
Yeah, confusing.
I know, it always is.
And this fund is new?
Yes, so this is the first year that we've got it.
Okay, so this was established last year.
Last year by the Chancellor.
And this is a fund where technologies, where you would take applications from outside state also?
No,
Meaning
this,
NC State.
no, this is just for NC State
Okay, this is just for
Technologies.
NC State.
Yeah.
Are there any limits? What areas or what industries or what
No,
types?
not at all. So
Okay.
it's whatever the best technologies are, and it could be social entrepreneurship
Mhm.
projects too, if that's where we think the most impact is going to come from.
Okay. How do you hope to attract the attention of startups that might come out of might not come out of NC State, but from somewhere else, and
So one of the things
They
that
fit.
we're involved in is the Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network. Have you heard about that? It was announced last month, and it's money from the Blackstone Foundation, which is a new branch of the Blackstone Group, a very large investment firm.
you're talking May, announced May.
I believe it was May,
Okay.
might have been in late April. And they've given us together, so we have a consortium with NC State, Carolina, Duke, NC Central, and CED, the Council for Entrepreneurial Development, to develop this network of entrepreneurs
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
to help accelerate all of the technologies coming out of the region. Because studies have identified that that's one of the things that we're lacking, is this network opportunities.
Yeah. Ted Zoller does that over at
Yeah,
UNC.
at
Yes.
UNC.
Mhm.
So it was based on some of Ted's work on the denseness of these
Right.
networks, and ours needed
Mhm.
thickening.
The little trees.
Yes. And so the Blackstone Foundation has given a gift of $3.6 million over 3 years. And what that will fund is an executive director and 15 Blackstone master entrepreneurs.
And these are basically like consultants.
They're basically like consultants that will look at the technologies coming out of our universities, especially in the area, and each one of the master entrepreneurs will choose 2 of them to really give a lot of tutelage to those companies and help them plug into funding networks.
And they're 15, you said, or 16?
It's supposed to be 15,
15.
plus the executive director.
Yeah, I know what you mean now.
Yeah. And so that will, I think, help connect us up with this larger network. And then we still will have our traditional incubator, which is run through the Industrial Extension Service, and that's pointed more at companies outside of the university system.
How fast is it realistic to expect any results out of all this activity?
That's a really great question. It really depends on the field that you're in. So the life sciences ones take a very long time, and it's getting longer, maybe even 10, 12 years before you really know if something's going to pay off. Some of the ones in software, gaming, that can be very rapid. So it really depends on sort of by area.
I'm just thinking even new company foundation, incorporation.
Well, we're hoping that by 2015 that we would see a doubling of the number of startups that we do per year.
Out of state?
Out of state. So right now we average 4 to 6 per year. We'd like to see that be more like 8 to 10 of successful startups. You can start up lots of startups. The number isn't a great metric, but it's ones that succeed.
What do you call succeed? Survive for a certain amount of time? Or?
It could be survive, it could be creating jobs, it could be being acquired, it could lead to new licensing deals. We have a great example of one where it's a technology developed by our faculty that is a natural insect repellent made from a compound from tomatoes.
Hmm.
and it's the only insect repellent that's approved for children by the USDA. And we first licensed it to a small startup company in the area, and they weren't able to get it out to mass marketing. So they could get it in some local stores, but they just didn't have the power to get it out. So, so we got the license back from them, licensed it to Scott's, and now it's like in every Walmart and every Lowe's, and those larger companies have the ability to get it at eye level, all of the things. So sometimes a startup company isn't the right place for a technology to go. But they were able to develop it to the point where that was the right place.
Okay. This area has done a lot of initiatives, and there's actually a lot of help for people with ideas, with technologies, who want to start companies, and this area really thrives on startups more so than on the large guys.
Right.
Is this a new approach because you know, things have changed, venture capital has changed, business models have changed, you know, the internet has changed, or is this more of an approach because of the recession we're coming out of, and things have just gotten so much harder?
I think it's sort of all of the above, and all the things you mentioned. That definitely the economy has made it more difficult to get venture capital and that early funding. They've moved up to much higher levels of readiness than they were willing to go to before. So companies need more help. It's also just making sure that a greater percentage get out, and that we have these examples that have worked in other places of these proof of concept centers being effective, and so it's a new business model for us to copy. You're right, it's a very rich environment that we have here, and we've had spectacular successes like Cree and SAS, but they'll tell you it wasn't easy, and so we're trying to make it easier for them.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add that I didn't ask you?
Oh, I think you've gotten a lot of it, Sabina. Just that a lot of this is still in the design phase. We're still trying to figure out the best way to do it, and I'm talking with a lot of folks about the most important role that NC State can play in economic development. It's certainly part of our mission for the state, but what are the things that we can do that will be the biggest help to the state?
Okay. So. I'm just noticing that I've been here for 10 years, and I've never seen so many initiatives of universities and industry to create jobs.
Well, I think it's certainly what's on everybody's mind right now, because of watching what's going on and the number of people that have lost jobs, that may lose jobs with these new budget cuts that we're facing. And so what are the ways that we can start to create them again, and jobs that will really last? So not just ones that are, I mean, the stimulus was fabulous for us, but it allowed us to not have to stop a lot of research projects and some new ones to start. But what we want is sustained jobs and a sustained economy, and it's what North Carolina's always been really good at. It's what attracted me here, and hopefully they won't dismantle too much of it.
Do you hope that this might gain you access to more grant funding that you might not get otherwise, or is that not so important?
Well, the other thing that we're doing on the innovation side of the house is we're trying to work a lot more in our industry relationships, and we really want to make NC State the easiest university to work with. revised our patent policy, and our license is now only 7 pages. We're trying to really help industry define their needs and what role we can play with them in meeting those needs. We've created a concierge office so that it's one-stop shopping. We're a very large, very distributed organization with lots of great things going on, many innovations. But if you're outside, it's a very confusing place to try to figure out. So one thing we've done is create the concierge office so that people only have to go one place.
Where is that?
Well, it's in Corporate Research 1, but it's more of a virtual. It's in the one phone number, one website, one email that people can go to, and we connect them up wherever they need to be.
But it's basically in Centennial, on Centennial campus.
Right now, the people answering the phone are sitting on Centennial campus.
And that is for NC State, right?
Yes.
Not for the whole.
No, that's just for NC State. We are working on a database that we've developed jointly with Carolina that's called Reach NC. It's been facilitated by the system office, UNC system office, and that's going to be a database to find experts anywhere within the UNC system. And Duke is now joining us, and Wake Forest University is joining us, so that hopefully it'll soon become a statewide resource to find experts in any area. It's very searchable, and it's constantly updated. It's not one where people have to go fill their information in. It uses.
How do you find it?
I'll send you the.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.